Hello, hello. Happy Tuesday. It's a new week, but we got the same problems. Welcome to Party Wipe, episode 25. We are making a roguelike deck builder where you draft an RPG party. How's it going? Hey, Rhiannon. Hey, Nix. All right. Well, I feel like we've been like in architecture hell for the last couple weeks on this game. We're back to pretty much just being where we were at. I made some changes, fixed some stuff, refactored some things. There's an elephant in the room that I would like to ignore. Oh, we're having some editor problems. Oh, it's because I closed the project with errors. It's my fault. I did that slightly on purpose. Just to remind myself of the extent of the problem. Yeah, we have a real problem we have to figure out, which is this game needs undo redo. It needs undo redo both in response to card actions, so like you play a card, whatever. You also need undo redo for, I don't know, actions, move actions, attack actions, whatever. You need to be able to undo redo pretty much everything. And that is hard. That is hard because there's really just two ways to do it. It's going okay for you, Rhiannon? You found out yesterday the owners of the company you work for sold it. Ooh. You met the new owner. Well, I hope that transition works out okay for you. So there's really two ways to do this sort of thing. One is to have like basically have versions of functions that go forwards and backwards. So if you have like a play card function, you'd also have like an unplay card function. Problem is that's really open-ended for certain things. For a card, we could actually maybe do that. We could maybe get away with that. For an action, no, I'm sorry to hear that, Nix. That's really hard. So what was I saying? So either you can try to have a function that will like undo whatever you've done. So you can say, here's an event. This event occurred. Or you can say, I've changed my mind. I would like to roll back all the changes that that event made. You can attempt to do that, but there's tricks to that. One of which is like, what if performing that action deleted something? How do you get the thing that you deleted back? Right? Tricky. So that leads us to the other solution, which is more of like a snapshot, where before any kind of action occurs, we kind of fence in, we figure out what the expanse, what like the maximum impact radius of this action could be. Or maybe we keep a list of everything that got affected by it or something. And you just store a copy of that thing from before the action was carried out, so that if you want to undo the reaction or undo the action, you just like roll back to the previous state. That has its own challenges, but I think that's the only option for us, unfortunately. Why did I feel like I needed to return a character figure to this? Oh, it's because we need to know if something actually occurred, right? I see. Hey, Jacob. How's it going? Oh, hey, Sapphire. Oh, Nanigans, what's up? Yeah, that's all you can do. That's all you can do, Nex. It's very sad. So I think our transaction system is going to need to work on that approach, which is like rollback sort of thing. Reload. If you undo an action, you just need to return to the previous state. That's still going to be hard because we have to figure out what changed. We have to try to roll back as little as possible, which could be more than one thing. Like, let's say you throw a fireball into the middle of the room, right? And you, like, slaughter multiple enemies. Maybe even you change the environment. Like, it destroys a table or something. I don't know if we're going to have destructible terrain in this in that way, but you can imagine, like, just how wide the effect could be. And if you're like, oh, undo, well, now we need to roll back all of that, which included deleting multiple things that we need to now reload. And we can't just reload them from resources because they might have had their own XP values. They might have had, like, transient things on them. They might have had nested things on them. So, like, they had a bunch of stuff associated with them. So, huge challenge. And I think we can't really work on anything else until we figure this part out. And figuring this part out might take a minute. So, frustrating in terms of the schedule and staying lean and moving aggressively. But this is a game that's going to support undo redo. It really needs to support it from the ground up. It's not really something you can add later. It's something that really has to be considered from the architecture itself. So that is what we are going to be doing. Jacob, Little Dr. Games Jam is done. Onto the solo dev jam. Nice. We're going to do extra jams so I can live through your jam. I can live vicariously through you. Great. Shenanigans, you're doing good. You got your top layer grass tiles working the other day. Yeah, you've got inset mud tiles working well. Nice, nice. All right, take it easy, Nix. Thanks for hanging out. All right, so how are we going to do this? So we have our input manager, which is, I guess, going to be the one responsible for creating and keeping track of these. So we have this error because this was like the first thread that I started pulling, which really illustrated how serious and bad the problem was, which is I was like, well, if we drop a card, we need to know if anything like came of that so that we can mark it as something that occurred so that we can potentially undo it. And the way I was like, oh, well, let's just ask the environment if the card drop actually went through. If we got like a character sheet back, which would mean that we successfully like placed the card somewhere. That unfortunately doesn't totally work, so I need to think of a different way to do it. But yeah, we need to record a transaction, and we need to take some kind of state snapshot, and we need to figure out how to arrange everything so that anything that would have changed from a card play or an action or something like that is in the smallest possible area, so it's like the easiest to swap. I'm thinking we concentrate it in the environment map. That's like the most straightforward place to do it, because that's where like character... Wow, shit, we can't do that because that actually doesn't have all the information. That has the character figures and the card tokens, but it does not have things like... does not have things like the character sheet and everything. We might actually need to do it in the party manager, and we might actually need to relocate things like the character figures and the card tokens to be there. Or we just watch these. We watch particular things, card tokens or whatever. But the character figures, we would need to be able to roll back. And the character sheets, we would need to be able to roll back. And that's maybe it. I guess the party tabs. Stuff that's based off the character sheets. But yeah, we need to come up with a list of like, what would we need in a snapshot? What's the minimum amount that we can snapshot? Because reloading scenes and stuff and making sure all of the references and everything are all up to date and consistent, this is going to be annoying. But if we pull it off, it'll be pretty good. Be pretty good. Sapphire, you're tempted to join this next solo dev jam and stream it, but you think you need the weekend? Not much of anything going on. Oh yeah, no, don't worry about that. Take it easy. So yeah, I'm a little directionless on this, so we're gonna kind of figure it out, but I don't know. I didn't actually do very much work over the weekend. I also wanted to just chill. The momentum is flagging a little bit, but it's all right. So the copied sheet thing is not sufficient. I think what we need to do is we just need to tell it. I think I want to have like a dropped success bowl that we get back. I'm going to go back to just retrieving a bowl rather than trying to send information back through. Because some transactions would be limited in their effect, especially the card drops. That should be pretty easy. Because luckily a card drop won't affect much except the character the card was dropped onto. But like I said, there's like knock-on effects, right? So let's say we had a character who was like most of the way to a new level. They had like 3 or 4 character cards on them. They had like a couple level 1 cards and a level 2 and then you dropped like a level 3 or something. Let's say you dropped a bunch of these character cards. All the character cards will get deleted because they're consumed to level up. So we would need to, if we undid the card play that leveled up the character, we would need to get all of those cards back from Oblivion. Or worse, the trash pile. So I think card plays are probably one of the easier moves to wind and unwind. Because card plays luckily have a fairly narrow scope in terms of what effects they have. So we probably don't need to record that much. But when we start recording actions, like moves, and especially like abilities and like attacks and stuff like that, it's going to be harder, and we're going to need to do this very carefully to make sure everything stays consistent. So we're just going to take it one piece at a time. So drop success is a bowl that we get back from the card dropped function. So it's just going to return a bowl. Might call it an effect. I don't know. Success is better. Drop. I'm already seeing details of this that are problematic. Okay. So we actually can't actually just send a bool. What we could maybe do is send a string name back. And that would be what it's like dropped onto. In this case, the dropped onto would be just the character name. It would be the same as the card name, but it's not always the card name. This function. Hey, LSG. You really need to actually delete a card when you use it, or you can put it in recycle bin. We put it in the trash. We put it in the trash. That's not the problem. Unplaying the cards is the easiest part of this. The hard part is everything else. Although it's still complicated, because, like, let's say you played a card. That card was a piece of equipment. That piece of equipment replaced another piece of equipment. So now you have a piece of equipment going into your discard. And so if you unplay that, now you need to take that equipment card that you played, put it back in the hand, go fetch the equipment that you discarded, which might actually be multiple cards because it might be a piece of equipment that you were leveling up. And so you just have to undo all of that. And as long as you're not deleting anything, that should be pretty easy to do, but you need to keep this record. Once you start talking about actions, actions are a little different. Actions are like, you could literally like nuke the whole battlefield and delete everything on it. Or even worse, just make some small stat changes to everything. So I don't see a clean way to do this without just like being willing to like reload snapshots. So then the real question is, what's in a snapshot? How long would it take to reload? How many references to the thing are there that would need to be updated? Yeah, I think that's the only way, Jacob. I think the only reasonable way is to like figure out the like boundary of like the effect, and then be willing to just, and then duplicate like a copy of that effect, or of the state of all of that area before the effect, and then be willing to reload the whole thing and hope that it's fast enough that nobody really notices. I mean, I think if there's a little hiccup when you do an undo, I don't think people will mind that much. Okay, so we can't... Yeah, we can't even just send back what card. This just needs to be a void or something. I don't know what information we can send back. I think we need to do something. I think we have to send this character figure back, which is what I had before I started, which is what I had at the end of the day, which is what I saved. And I think we just removed this variable. This is always null to start, right? Yeah. So for this example, I think what we need to do is we're just going to return the character figure, which may be null. But if it's null, we'll just create the character figure. And then maybe we don't emit this card token thing. Actually, we probably do. I was doing a lot of indirect communication between the environment and the part and the UI, because that's what I liked. That was the nice way to do this. But I think what we're going to need to do is actually take a little bit more direct control so that we can orchestrate all of this a little bit better. Okay. So if the card dropped returns a character figure, I'm going to say variable target figure is a character figure. Actually, I guess this will never be null. Character figure. Token spent. Party figs. Ah, okay, here. We'll do it this way. So character figure. Party figs. Actually, this might be okay. This part might not be as bad as I was thinking it might be. Fig hovered. Fig selected. LF card res is a quick card res. No, these should be the same. I might do it this way though. LSG, you've had the thought before of an almost echo system with signals where you send out a signal, then await a corresponding echo signal, come back before continuing. No idea if that would make sense at all. Also seems insanely arrow prone. Yeah, I don't think I would do that. I think there's a reason they say call down. Maybe if you had like this very peer-oriented thing where nobody was really in charge of anyone else and it was all very equal, you could do that. But I think what we would do here is we would signal up to some kind of orchestrator who would call down and then listen for the response. Because, yeah, I think having it all be just totally untethered signaling. I like signals. But yeah, if we need to get stuff back. So, like, here's a problem for us that I actually don't think is a real problem. But, like, one of these paths, one of these branches, we're going to send a character figure back, which is the little physical representation on the game board of your character. In one of these branches, you have to make the character, which means that character doesn't have a character sheet yet. And the way we deal with that is by emitting this signal, and then another system, the UI, the party manager, will be like, oh, hey, I just got this character figure that doesn't have a sheet associated with it. Let me associate a sheet with it. And so this signal will get emitted. That system will be like, okay, I need to assign a character sheet to this. What about the hypothetical situation where you drop this card and then I don't think this is technically possible, but let's just say you manage to trigger an undo between when this character fig gets created and the other system creates a character sheet and associates the figure with that sheet. Well, now you have a problem. Now you might have a problem. Because now you might be missing a reference to something, but maybe it's okay. Maybe it's okay. In this specific example, I don't think that's a real problem, but those are the kinds of problems that could come up if you're like just openly like signaling to things. We could do a signal and then we could await a response signal and then the code could just hang. That's not great either. Hey, Strivent, how's it going? I think this needs to be a lot more tightly orchestrated from the top down. And I don't like some very stateful systems. Like, I really don't like the idea of having to, like, maintain a copy of the game state every turn. Sometimes multiple copies. But I don't know another way to do this. So we're gonna kind of just struggle through it. See if this could work. our skipping the arms and legs is a good way to simplify our animation, that's for sure. You probably want a reference to the character somewhere, and then when you go to create the card, if that reference now points to null, then abort. Well, the problem is when you go to create the character, you're creating the reference because the character doesn't exist. This is a trivial example because if you undo the process that created a character, you just delete it. So if it's still in the process of instantiating and fully creating the character, that's not that bad. What's tougher is if we get into a situation where you're deleting something, or when you're trying to recall something that was deleted and it's referenced everywhere. Honestly, the more references we have to things, the harder this is going to be. It'd be better to minimize the amount of that. Yeah, having it go consistently is probably what you would want. The target figure. So if not target fig is null. So if we dropped a card and it had no target, obviously nothing occurred, so we don't need to record a transaction. So this might be okay for now. Just be like, okay, we dropped a card on the environment. Did we drop it onto something? If we did, then we know that something occurred. We need to record a transaction. So when we record a transaction, what we're going to do we need to record the card. I kind of want to record a copy of the card, but it actually makes sense that we record the card itself. We record the card. You know what we really want, which is unfortunate, is we want a copy of the thing that's going to be affected before it's affected. So yeah, this actually needs to be a multi-stage process, which is annoying. Like, we need to be like, hey, I want to play this card. And then have a system that's like, okay, that's reasonable. That seems like a reasonable place to play a card. And if I'm modifying something that already exists, then we need a system that's like, hold on. Let me get a copy of this thing before you change it. Then once it has that copy, then it can be like, okay, you're now allowed to change it. I might need to do some research on how people generally approach this sort of thing, because it seems hard. Seems quite hard to do correctly. And I've done undo redo, but only in the context of like one thing, which is like an editor. And an editor is actually a pretty sterile and safe place to do undo redo. Doing undo redo for all game actions is a lot harder. LSG, unless you use a plugin pattern where all modifiers are on some list, you can just pop from without affecting the underlying object. That'd be tough to do for all possible actions. It wouldn't be that bad it wouldn't do that bad because there is an underlying concept or an underlying piece of data that everything is based off of, which is like the card resource, and the card resource is unchanging. So we could do a thing where we redefine the character sheets as like a diff off of the underlying resource. And then all you really need to do is store the different diffs. It's a little more complicated because we have card movement that we need to be able to undo. Like, cards are being added to piles and moved around all the time. That's less crazy because we at least have the reference to the card and we could just move the cards back. Well, movements is its whole own thing. This is just for the card stuff. It's going to be, we're going to need a slightly different system to handle actions and things. But for the card stuff, this could work. Something like this could work. It does involve way more orchestration from the top down than I was imagining initially. We can at least do it from this kind of autoloader thing so that we can at least access it from anywhere. But yeah, I think we need to be able to undo and redo card actions, which is unfortunate. I really wanted to get to like the turn-based battle map stuff, but it seems like we need to solve this problem first. And we need to do it in a way that will be extensible to the actions, the turn-based battle map stuff. Because the undo redo stack doesn't really care whether you played a card or did an action. The one nice thing is that each turn is one character goes. Obviously, the action of that one character could affect every other character, so it's not that good of an advantage, but it does mean that we can clear the queue a lot. Like, we don't need to have this super long transaction list. Like, we just need to remember up until the last turn. So it's not going to be this big list of, like, stuff. But it's still enough where it's, like, kind of annoying. Because you would need to be able to, like, if someone abuses the system and they're just like, undo, redo, undo, redo, undo, redo, undo, redo, that needs to be fast. That needs to be, like, unnoticeably fast. Like, you can't even tell that it's taking time to do that. Beyond, like, a split second. Like, it can't start slowing things down just because we're undo, redoing things. But yeah, so a card played transaction would need to, it needs to know what card was played. So if you play a card, a whole bunch of stuff can happen. The card that's played would either create or modify a character sheet, along with a character figure. And a bunch of cards could move and or be trashed. So we almost need a list of, like, we almost need a list of the cards that were affected, that moved, beyond just this card. This is why I don't want to do this list thing. I kind of want to be able to... So here's the issue with just taking a snapshot of the character. A character is associated with a bunch of cards. If you duplicate a character sheet, like let's say you duplicate the character sheet, that's not duplicating the cards. Maybe it should, maybe it shouldn't, but you'd almost need to like rebuild the character sheet and make sure that all of the cards are tracked correctly and everything. And against your undo redo stack is on your list of priority things right now. Keep procrastinating on it. Yeah, I don't think I can. OSG, it sounds like your undo redo stack is not a tree. Especially a nice small struct to represent each transaction. There are no structs in Godot. I'm gonna tell you right now. Which, in one sense, is an advantage, and in another sense is a pain in the butt. There's a lot of stuff that's really nice. Like recording all of our transactions is pretty nice because everything in Godot is a class. But yeah, there's no such thing as a nice struct. Everything is passed by reference. And that's really annoying because you can imagine we have a character sheet that has like a bunch of cards in it. And let's say that playing this card causes a bunch of those cards to get trashed. And like the character sheet levels up and stuff. So yeah, like a character level up involves trashing all of the cards from the previous level and below, or whatever you want to call it. All the cards that went into the level up get trashed. The card that a new card is created, which is the leveled up version of the character. All of the old cards are trashed. They're not deleted, they're just put in the trash, which is good. So if you undid the level up, you would need to delete, not trash, delete the leveled up version of the card, and then retrieve all of the other cards out of the trash. And that wouldn't be that hard to do if you just saved a copy of the character sheet from before the level up, because it would have references to all of its cards. But unless you cleaned it up correctly, like you get those cards out of the trash, you would start to have situations where you had one card in two places, which I think would break a few things. I think that would break a few things. And could that even really work? Because the cards are actually nodes in this system, and they actually have an existence. So if you created a duplicate of a character sheet and all of its cards, and you reloaded that character sheet, it would include all of those nodes, which are the cards, but those nodes were also moved into the trash. Are they duplicated before they move? Maybe this is actually not that bad. The plugin likes you to duplicate cards before doing anything with them, and I don't totally understand, but maybe I do understand now. Yeah, so to the trash pile we emit, and we send a copy of the cards to the trash. Okay, maybe this isn't that bad. Maybe this isn't that bad. We'd have to find them. But we could record that. So we'd at least at minimum need to record references to all of the cards that were trashed or discarded so we could call them back. Oh my god. What if the deck gets shuffled? Well, I guess if the deck gets shuffled, that's its own. That would be part of another transaction, and we would just need to know if that happened. Because we would need to be able to undo that. Oh my god, this is rough. Yeah, it's increasingly looking like, of the two paths where you have like a function that unwinds things that occur versus you just load a snapshot of the whole thing and don't worry about it. I'm increasingly thinking that the just load a snapshot from before the action, I think that's the only way. And I think our only hope is that is fast enough. I don't see any other way. Hey, Myth. Will I be participating in the Solo Dev Jam this weekend? No, unfortunately not. Wish that I were. Are you? Should be fun. Should be a good time. Okay. Are they seeded to avoid undo redo abuse? No. But they probably should be. We'll probably have to add something that guarantees that such an occurrence would be consistent. We'd probably have to seed it with like the transaction ID or something. Just so as long as it's the same transaction, the deck will shuffle the same way. Now, you could say, well, what if you just do some innocuous action and then shuffle the deck to try to get a better outcome? I don't know if I care enough. I think that would be a thing that we would fix later on to like... I feel like that's what I would call a good problem to have. I mean, if you need a break from your project, you'll probably do it. Nice, nice. That sounds good. RNG manipulation is fun. All right, so... What did I change? Oh, just that one thing. Sure. Who cares? Thinking of encapsulating some of these nodes differently. Thinking of encapsulating some of this stuff to make it simpler to reload. So like all of this stuff, the discard pile, the draw pile, the trash pile, the hand, player hand, party manager, the opposition manager, the environment manager. Potentially all of these things would need some part of them to be reloaded. And so what we would need is we would need to make sure that if we reloaded them, we would need to be able to reconnect all of their references and stuff. Hey, Vita. How's it going? Happy Tuesday. Okay, well, that's undo. That's undo. If we just do snapshotting, we can do it. We can do snapshot. We can do undo with snapshotting. What about redo? Redo is just keep a copy of the inputs and then just run it back, run it again. So a transaction needs a snapshot from before the effect, which is terrifying. Or snapshot before undo? For redo? Yeah, maybe. So when you hit undo, what you want is you take a snapshot after. That would certainly simplify it. My thinking was you could also just play back that input. But yeah, maybe it would be easier to just do a snapshot both ways. I feel like we're going to get some crazy like node instantiation bugs or whatever, complex state issues, if we're just potentially constantly reloading these scenes. Well, they're not even really scenes. They're like... They're these saved states. Strivent, snapshot on mouse hover over undo and redo buttons? No, that'd be too much. You would snapshot when stuff happens. LSG, you think you missed it, but am I planning to allow undo redo? of individual actions, or is it just enough to roll back the state to the initial turn state? No, it'll be per interaction. Yeah, I can't think of a better way to do it than with snapshotting. And that has its own drawbacks as well. Well, that might simplify things in that I don't know if I necessarily care what kind of action it is. The transaction thing, this might be the same thing no matter what. I don't know if I need the version. Why did I want the version? So if you did something, you'd have this transaction, and if you undid, that transaction would go away. And what if you did it again? Would that look arguably the same as this transaction? Would there be a way to even track the version, the number of times you've done the thing? I guess you could. I don't know if I actually need to record the version of the transaction. I just did this on instinct because it's a unique ID, the combination of the two things. But I actually might not need both. That's the way we're doing this. Strivent, is saving the board state more difficult than just storing values? You're ignorant. Problem is, everything in Godot is a class. Everything. It's all references to classes. If these were just structs and whatever, it would be very lightweight and we could just recreate the state of things trivially. Problem is, if we go that route, we also have to handle all of those references. Pretty much no matter what we have to do, we have to handle all of these references. It's a little rough. And so what I'm thinking about now is how to limit. So a bunch of stuff breaks. So like if we start reloading things, all of these unique node references here, these all become broken because they're cached. And they don't seem to play nicely with instantiation. So that seems rough. We'd have to make sure all of these editor time signal connections would break. We'd have to figure those out. Thanks for the hydrate. So I guess a transaction wants a snapshot from before the action and a snapshot from after the action. Well, is that true? I don't know if it needs a snapshot after the action. Oh, no, it does. It does because of the redo direction. Yeah, so we would need... So, but what does that entail? What does that entail? A quote-unquote snapshot. It would include a bunch of different things. Pretty much anything that needs to be snapshotted. And potentially reloaded. I'm a little worried about what this is going to do to our card plugin. I'm more than a little concerned about that. All right, where's CG? Where's the card game? Global. I think the thing that's tracks. Does this track anything? Okay, it registers layouts. It knows what card is being held. Okay, maybe it doesn't track any state. I was worried that it tracked some state and did some card registration stuff, but it doesn't seem like it. So it seems like if we're actually able to reload everything successfully, that would be fine. Okay, that's reassuring. Yeah, it sounds like we need to do a snapshotting thing and then just figure out how to collect all of that. Is there no way to get around calling classes? I mean, everything is a class in Godot. A vector is a class in Godot. It's all classes. If you're saying you want to get around calling classes and that you don't want any references to anything, that's going to be tough. What we can do is we can have all of the references be set up on ready so that when you reload the thing, the on ready function fires and it refreshes whatever references anything has to it. We just need to, and connects signals and stuff. We would need to unroll all of this unique node editor signal stuff and just have everything set itself up in code on ready. Would the after transaction snapshot basically be the next transaction? Basically be the next transactions before a snapshot? Yeah, you're not totally wrong. It would, wouldn't it? So maybe all we do is record a snapshot. So maybe when the player is about to do something, we record a snapshot, and then when the player has done something, we record another snapshot. And then we're not even really recording transactions, we're just recording snapshots. We're flipping it upside down. Or inside out. It would be nice if we could like wait and see what gets changed by the action. It'd be nice if we could do that, but the problem is we can't. We can't really. Because if we wait until the thing is acted upon to see if it's changed, we've missed our opportunity to snapshot it. Shenanigans, you're sort of popping in and out, so you may be missing context or understanding, but are your snapshots not just a doubly linked list? I don't know. I didn't go to school. I don't know how to use linked lists. Yes. Based on the summary that I'm reading here. I don't see what that advantage that gives me, though. I mean, it's not a pointer. Problem is the snapshot is not just a thing. The snapshot would be this thing that we have to create. So yes, but I don't know the advantage of that being true. Because I would have just implemented it as like a just an array with like an index. So you're not always at the head of the array. Sometimes you're in the middle somewhere. But yeah, I think that's an accurate description. Well, feel free to suggest stuff, Strivent. If I'm short in my response, it's only out of frustration. But it seems like the card plugin won't mind if we do this. I'm just a little concerned about organization. organizationally how we do this. So the environment map keeps a collection of figurines. Figurines would all need to be, we would just need to snapshot the whole figures node, which wouldn't be that bad. So I guess one thing that's worth figuring out is, I'm going to start taking notes here on my little notepad. I'm going to start figuring out what nodes need to be snapshotted. Are we heading into ads? Oh, wow. We've already been doing this an hour. All right. Well, this is, I feel like our solution is in line with what we want to do, which is generally to just do the simplest thing, even if it's not the easiest. And snapshotting is definitely the simplest version of this. Are you doing command patterns? Yes, that's what we were setting up. A command pattern input system is exactly what I was setting up, which alerted me to this problem. Because yeah, that's the nice thing. I said there were a few nice things about everything in Godot being a class. One of them is that doing the command pattern becomes trivial. Because everything is a reified object, or whatever you want to call it. But a command pattern by itself doesn't really describe the solution, because you could use a command pattern to implement the other way I said, which is having a forwards and backwards version of every function, so that time becomes like not an important thing. You either do or undo something. And the problem for us is that the effect radius, like the number of things that might be affected by an action, are large. And so like things might get deleted. Things are likely to get deleted, or at least trashed. So if you just have a reverse version of a function, there actually isn't enough information to implement the reverse version of a function, because you're destroying information when you're taking some of these actions, unless we store all of this stuff. But then it's a question of like, well, what do you store? And then you need to figure out everything that would potentially be affected, and then you might as well just do a snapshot. I'm very familiar with the gameprogrammingpatterns.com/commands, command.html. That's a great section. Everyone should read that if they're implementing an input system. And yeah, that's what I'm saying, is that's one of the options, is you have this, you either execute the function forward and you execute the function backwards. I don't think that's an option for us. Ah, okay, you're not hearing my response. Okay, that's fine. Maybe don't recommend things while you're in ads. But thanks. All right, snapshot nodes. What nodes need to be included in the snapshot? So all the stuff to do with cards, because cards might change even if it's a non-card action. Like let's say your bard attacks, or let's say your bard is attacked by a skeleton and your bard dies. Well, now your bard's character sheet is deleted, so that's rough. And all of the bard's cards get dumped into the discard pile. So anything to do with cards, which includes things like player's hand needs to be snapshotted. So the player hand needs to be snapshotted. So if you duplicate a card container, the card container has an array of cards. Those cards are references to nodes in its own body, like it's in itself that it owns. Would that array be updated? Probably not. So that'll be annoying. Welcome back, Strivent. Yeah, the command, I would highly recommend anyone go and read gameprogrammingpatterns.com. It's a great book. Buy the book, actually. It's really great. Their command pattern section is nice. They have some other stuff on like how to do state machines, and they have lots of stuff on there. It's a really nice game-focused interpretation of this old book. The old one done by the Big Four. What's it called? Gang of Four. It's the Gang of Four's book. It's like a reinterpretation of that from like a game-focused standpoint. It's really good. And yeah, Strivent. The recommendation you make is good. That's the other. So there were two. We described two ways that this could work. One is snapshotting, and the other is defining forward and backward versions of all of your functions. And the problem with that has to do with things like knock-on effects, null references. So if the problem is, depending on what your thing does, you can't necessarily just have a backwards version of the same function. Especially if the effects are wide and indirect and like all sorts of stuff. There's a lot of reasons why you can't do one of those. And we're in the, I think if we could do a backward version of every function, it would be significantly more complex than just snapshotting everything. So I think we're going to go with the snapshotting approach. Hey, Remus. There's a deep duplicate that'll create copies of refs. Yeah, that's the thing is, I like the deep duplicate, and I understand that that would also create copies of like the nodes that are in the hand, but it would also update the array of the references of the nodes in the hand. And some of this stuff we might just need to test. So you would have to refactor. We're refactoring everything. I'm saying I don't think you can necessarily write a function that just does the backwards version of the kinds of interactions that we're talking about in this game without having to record like a crazy number of things, such as like any potential side effect or impacted thing. Like, you'd almost need to do something recursively. You'd almost need to do some like crazy, like keep listening and look for like knock-on effects and like add every knock-on effect into this thing. Because the problem is, if you redo a function, if you undo, if you play this thing and you're like, or even worse is redo. Like if you started deleting things and you don't have references to the things anymore that you want to run the function over again, I think it could be done. I think it's not the simple option. I think the simple option is to just try snapshotting and see if the performance is acceptable. Because if the snapshotting performance is acceptable, it's definitely the simpler version. And it's also future-proof. Because if we make changes to the system, to like how we do things, we'd have to change the undo versions of all the functions too. But if we just do snapshotting, as long as we just keep snapshotting the thing that we need to snapshot, that's like future-proof. We don't have to change it just because we've like altered the gameplay functionality. LSG, yeah, the actual array, you're not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure either. Like, I think if we said player hand dot like get nodes, all the get nodes would probably be up to date. We'd probably just do that as part of the duplicating process. You know what we would probably do is we would probably need to define our own duplicate override or something like that, or like a wrapper function that like does some extra little record keeping in cases of that. In cases of that where we have like an array with references to nodes that still exist but are being duplicated in this other copy. Yeah, let's look up the deep copy version of duplicate. Why not? I think is that a node function or an object function? It's probably an object function, isn't it? Some objects, node resource, have a duplicate. Okay, looks like maybe it's a node function. Node.duplicate. Can I do that? No. Well, let's just look up node then. Yeah, the snapshot captures the degenerate values, so you could add new effects without needing to update the snapshot. Yeah. Yeah, as long as we're sure that we're capturing the entirety of everything that might be affected, it's all right. I'm a little concerned about the performance implications of doing this, but it might not actually be that bad. Let's look at their duplicate function. We would just need to make sure that we're very disciplined about how we handle establishing and reestablishing references and signal connections and stuff. We would need to make sure we're doing everything in like the onReady function. Is a duplicate of something already in the tree when it gets duplicated? I don't know. Let's see. We might need our own duplicate function. We might need to do like a weird version of duplicate. Shenanigans. Snapshot should be just fine. The way you handle this with databases that need history, etc., is just create a quote-unquote action. It just contains the name of the action, the state you were changing, and the previous values of those you're about to overwrite. Yeah, the problem is these aren't just entries in a database with values we're overwriting. We're like deleting things as a result of these actions. But yeah, the snapshotting thing is nice because I specifically want to avoid that problem of like having to rebuild the state of something by like filling back out all the fields that changed or something like that. All right, duplicates the node, returning a new node with all of its properties, signals, groups, and children copied from the original. How? So it must already be in the scene tree. Behavior can be tweaked through the flags. Internal nodes are not duplicated. For nodes with a script attached. Okay. By default, this method will duplicate only properties marked for serialization. Fun. Yeah, I don't know if duplicate will work for us then. Because I don't actually want to duplicate the thing in the tree. I should probably have like a test case of what duplicate does. But that's fine. We can just make our own duplicate function. I still don't totally understand how that hard plugin does all of the things it does with duplicate, how that doesn't create problems for it. I feel like if I did understand, this would be less awful for me. Seeing a lot of forum posts annoyed with how they handle node.duplicate. Yeah, I don't think node.duplicate will work for us. I think we'll just need our own snapshotting system. But that's fine, because then each custom class that we need to snapshot, we just implement a snapshot function, and then each snapshot function is just responsible for storing, for returning a copy of itself as a new node that's not in the tree. That's probably how we would need to do this. If we're going to do snapshotting, I might be okay to put a pin in that for now. In terms of not like waiting on finishing that to proceed. No, I wouldn't want each node to handle its own undo. It's an interesting idea. But the problem is a lot of these nodes are going to get deleted and recreated as part of the undo redo process. So they can't really be responsible for it themselves. They have to be managed by something. No, I think I'll just create a snapshot function for each of my custom classes that needs it. And then that will just be a process that it just creates a copy of itself and assigns all of its own attributes. And if it has things that need to be copied, like if it has its own children that need to be copied, it'll go through that process. Like if it needs to copy all of the cards in its card pile, it can create a new card pile. Okay, that's not terrible. But yeah, we would need to make sure that things like this, so this is a great example. The player hand has this ready function where it tells the input manager that it exists and it connects its signal to the input manager. This is how we would need to handle all referencing and signal connections. Something like this. So that is we're like deleting and recreating these things. We're like updating the references to them. It sounds okay. It doesn't sound terrible. It also sounds like I could plausibly ignore it for the moment while I figure out what actually needs to be involved. But I'm going to make a list of what I think would need to be snapshot. So I said the player hand would need to be snapshot. It might make sense to just do the whole party manager. Because the tabs and the sheets would be changed. And a lot of stuff, this stuff would be changed. So let's say party manager. The opposition manager. The card piles. Things like trash pile, draw pile, discard pile. And then, some part of the environment map. Probably just the character figures. I'm not going to reload the whole environmental map. That would be insane. Although maybe it would work. Depends on how well I build out, like how well I would be able to update things like the path grids and the path lines and stuff. That should be easy. So let's just say, let's also include the character figs. I'm not convinced that this will be fast, but it might be reasonably fast. If it's small enough scale. Character figs is all of the figures on the battlefield. I might eventually split them up into separate things, but right now it's just they're all in one. I probably will split them up eventually, kind of like the way the party and the opposition are stored separately. If you snapshot draw discard piles both ways, you guess you may not need to seed the shuffles. I might, because yeah, I don't know. It depends on how a shuffle works. Let's look at that for a second, just out of curiosity. So there is a shuffle function. So a card pile has a shuffle function. The card game plugin has its own random number generator, it looks like. Let's look into that a little bit more. Oh, it's literally just a new random number generator. So yeah, you could undo redo and get different shuffles. So someday we might need to make that more complicated. Yeah, it's probably seeded. Yeah, but the thing is, I think if you just did an undo redo spam. Let's see, is there a situation where you could actually scrutinize what occurred? Yeah, you could. So let's say you used an ability that said draw. Let's say you used an ability that said scry 1. And it was like, look at the top card of the deck. You can discard it or whatever, leave it. Or I don't know. Move it to the bottom of the deck or something like that. You could scry. Look at the card. Undo the scry. Scry again. And if each time, let's say the draw pile is empty when you do this, so it shuffles and puts the deck back together every time. I would say it's very likely that you would see different cards each time you scried. So what we would probably need to do is we would probably need to have some kind of seed that's stable based on deck shuffles. Probably need to be able to plug in some kind of... So as long as it's the same shuffle, you get the same result. Like if nothing else about the card interactions change. Because if you've added more cards to the discard, now if you shuffle, obviously there might be a different outcome. But I think you'd need some kind of like system to be like, is this the same shuffle? Well, you should get the same result. Yeah, something. It shouldn't be that hard. It shouldn't be that hard to prevent. So this has a seed. Can I submit my own seeds from this here? Yeah. You might need to regenerate the random number generator sometimes and like reseed it or something. It's a time-dependent seed. That's all right. That's what I would call a problem that would be good to have, which is people are playing it and they care. And they're like, wow, did you know that you could exploit the undo redo? Okay. Well, I don't think we're going to work on snapshotting right now per se, but let's update the input manager to be in the right shape. That we can do this, because it does change the way that we process inputs and execute actions. So anytime a card is dropped, we need to take a snapshot. The problem is sometimes the card is going to get dropped and it will have no effect, but we can't really wait. We can't really wait to see whether the card is going to have an effect before we take the snapshot. The best we could do is maybe discard the snapshot. Luckily, these are not things that are occurring often. These are things that occur rarely, which is like you literally grab a card, drag it out, and drop it. This isn't something occurring like every frame, right? This is something that occurs what I would call occasionally. So we can't actually... Well, we can use this target fig thing to know if we actually pulled off the card drop. So is the transactions array actually just going to be like an int? And the int is just like, is it really just transaction index? I don't actually need to. Can I just have something like this? Variable like snapshot array. I guess I'm going to need some kind of snapshot class that knows what it's recording. Probably need something like that. Is that name used anywhere? Snapshot, usually one word. I feel like traditionally it is. Say snapshot. A snapshot would be ref counted, I think. Because if you stop keeping track of the snapshot, let's just clean it up. Are targeted attacks transactions? Probably need to store the target of an ability. If so, no. Because we're just going to record, we're just going to snapshot everything. We'll snapshot the whole thing. Then we don't need to know anything. We don't need to know what you did. We don't need to know what you undid. We don't need to know anything. And that's why I think I prefer this. Assuming this system falls within some favorable performance target, which we'll definitely find out because the first version of this game is going to be a web game. We'll definitely know if there's a performance issue. But yeah, no, we're taking the nuke the site from orbit. It's the only way to know for sure approach. I stand with Ripley. I agree that we should nuke the site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure. But yeah, we'll have this snapshot thing. We'll do the most important thing, which is to give it an icon here. Is there a camera icon? Because that's what we want. Or a photograph would be acceptable as well. Although I guess it wouldn't be the green one, would it? This might secretly help a lot with saving. Because we could think of a snapshot as an autosave. So we might at least get some extra value out of this. Insofar as if the snapshot is complete and completely captures all of the things that occurred each transaction, then there's no such thing as save scumming. Not really. Yeah. That should improve our serialization. If nothing else. Oh, there's no camera icon? Shame. Maybe there's a photo icon. Let's go down. Let's see here. Floppy disk is not bad. I might use the floppy disk. Yeah, it'd be funny if this ends up just being our save system. Is there anything that the save system would need to handle that doesn't qualify? I guess some of the run-based stuff. Maybe some run-based stuff that you would need to know. But yeah, this might actually just kind of work. Photo camera. Yeah, we'll do this. This is so dumb. Actually, I don't think you'll ever see this because this isn't something that would be in the scene tree, is it? Whatever. Maybe it'll show up like this in the file system. I actually don't think it will. Maybe it will, though. We're going to find out. No, it's unlikely because it's not. It's this. This is a script, not a thing, not an example of the script. But that's fine. So what did I say? So we need to store the player hand. Well, let's do this alphabetically. So we would need to store character figs. Oh, this was just a node. Oof. I guess it's fine to do it this way. Should this be an array? Probably not. We'll do it like this. So the character figs. Discard pile. Some of these are easier than others. Draw pile. I'm glad I made custom classes for all of these. For, at the time, no good reason. So this character figs thing, I should probably have this be like a custom class or something. Instead of just a node. But I don't know, maybe not. We'll do it just for simplicity. I could call it the figure manager or something. Figures manager. Does that extend from node 2D? I think it does. Also, I need to like name my things right. All right. I think this is a direction. I had no idea what direction we were going to go when we started today, so that's an improvement. And this kind of makes it a little more ambiguous, whether it's just friendly characters or also enemy characters. I saw a chess piece in here. I think that's what I want to use. With the pawns. We have direction, yeah. That's something. That's not nothing. The worst is when you don't know what you're gonna do. It's hard to come back from that. Opposition manager, the party manager. Do I want these to be in one thing? Yeah. Oh, I forgot how I did this. Fig manager is so meaningless. I might change from figure to something else, like piece or something. I don't know. It's supposed to be short for like minifig, but you know, I don't think that comes through. Why is this the way I did this? Yeah, who cares? I'm gonna change it back. This isn't that many things. This should be okay. Hey, Strivent. Take it easy. Thanks for hanging out. Yeah, it's not great. It's a lot. I do it more often than not. Or maybe I do it more often than I like. LSG. You know, there's probably some other stuff I'm not thinking of, but this isn't that bad. So I would just need to make snapshot functions for all of these things so they can like track their pieces. Maybe I will work on this today. So like if we wanted to snapshot the, we could say like func, it could be like get snapshot. And it would just return a copy of itself. But it would return a copy of itself in a very particular way. So stuff like this card pile preview thing. So we're gonna need to like set these up as ready functions and things. Like we can't just have editor time. We can't have things like signal connections and references in the editor. Discard button may or may not break, but this might need to be something that we put. I don't know. Why does the discard pile want to know about this button? Container ready. Handle card added. Handle card empty. Handle container empty. We could just do some signals. We'd probably have to change this to signal up. It'd have to be probably set up like this. Like toggle discard button. Fig manager handle equipment state too? No. All of that's in the party manager. Party manager holds all the character sheets. And the character sheets is where all the equipment is stored. So I'm just gonna copy the whole party manager, I think. I think that's a little much, but there's reasons why it would be nice to be able to just roll it back. Like the tabs are associated with the sheets, and so the tabs might be different. And the roster texture in the back might be set to a different value because of the number of sheets and tabs, and the highlight might be different, or the highlight might be on or off or whatever. The only real questions are things like buttons like this. Should be fine. Should be fine. All right. So if I want to make one of these, we just say .new. So none of the things that I snapshot can be things that we just instantiated as a scene, because that won't work. It has to be something I can make a new version of. Well, maybe it does need to be something that needs to be instantiated. This should be okay, actually. Is there a reason this wouldn't be okay? Probably. Maybe not. Oh, there's a bunch of information, like there's a bunch of card container information that might be a problem, but maybe not. Maybe not. Oh, maybe we can't do this way. Maybe I do need to. I need to read up on how node.duplicate works, because I don't think this is gonna work. I don't think I can do that, but maybe we need to think about it. I can always punt on undo redo a little bit, but I feel like it's required in the very first version of the game. I feel like it's not optional. I feel like it's required. So how do we handle this here? Do we have? Yeah, so we have stuff. Is this stack shape saved or nope? Might need to save one of these. I don't know why I have to save this, or why I don't. I might need to save that. Max cards 0, card move duration 0, cards focusable off. Well, I at least need to set these. Is there anything here that is a scene? Okay, so like the opposition, the party manager is a scene. Maybe I should just set these as scenes. Maybe it's easier if I just instantiate the scene and then set up some stuff. Yeah, let's do that. That's easier than what I'm describing currently. Let's save these as scenes. Oh, there's position stuff. That's one reason why I don't want to do that. So I would need to know what their position is. I mean, I could just set that. Ooh, we are ruining the ability to have like a anything but a static layout here, but that's okay. I can live with it. Say export variable. We can say call it like initial position. This one's initial position will be 89 by 356. Okay, and this thing is going to need to know where its own. So we need to get rid of this accesses unique name thing. That's not going to work. Unique name seems to break down completely once you start loading and unloading things. So I think it's cached. That's fine. We'll have to add initialization stuff in everyone's ready function. Since we're in refactor mode, we might as well do this now. So I can get rid of this for a second. I said 89 by 356 is I think what I said. I don't think I need anything else. I actually don't even technically think I need that because I could just not reset position for the scene, but that's like, it's bad form, I think, to have a position built into a scene at the root node. I honestly could have a card piles control node that holds on to that. That wouldn't be much help. Like a pile manager. That sounds nasty. I'm not gonna deal with that. We'll just save the initial position. We need to do the same thing for this one. Trash pile doesn't need a position because it doesn't really matter. Although it does seem to have one for some reason. Yeah, this is fine. Where's my export variable? Oh, I need to say it's an export variable, duh. By 356. Hey, Fender the Carrot, how's it going? What's the game called? The game's called Party Wipe. It is a roguelike deck builder where you draft an RPG party. Right now we are working on an undo redo system so you can undo redo any card plays or actions taken. Didn't realize at the time maybe how involved that would be, but I certainly do now. Certainly do now. I don't know about this initial position garbage. Can I just save branches scene and not reset position? That's bad form, but I actually changed my mind, and I think that's just what I want to do. Because then in the future, if we don't do that, and it actually is layout based, then it'll just work. You don't have to worry about it. So that's what we're gonna do for now. We're just gonna save the scene and not reset the position. Should work. We'll save all of these as scenes. Then it's easier to reinstantiate them. And then we need to change their signal connection to be in code. So like these card pile preview connections can't be made. The preview hand. Oh, do we need to save that too? I don't see why. Actually, we might, because you might pick a card. Like, let's say the game is like, pick some cards. You pick a card and that wasn't the card you actually wanted to pick. You might want to roll back to the pick a card thing. So maybe we do include the preview hand. I'll write it down on my list. I don't know why I'm putting this on the list. I already have a script for it. You know, the Godot is apparently very simple, but you expect anyone uses a harder engine than like Game Maker. I don't think Game Maker. I think Game Maker is, well, I don't know. I didn't use Game Maker, but I think Game Maker is simpler than Godot. Godot has like a lot of native 3D support, as well as being like a best-in-class 2D game engine. Godot's certainly more extensible than Game Maker, because I think they give you a lot more access to the underlying C++. Are you solo? Do you have a team to do stuff like art and music? I am solo. I can do all of those things. For this game, I'm mostly using assets so that I don't have to do all of those things, because it's very slow. What kind of stuff do you like working on? Fender. It's a fun name. It's fun spelling. Snapshot. We're going to add the preview hand here, just in case. Just in case. So we'll reload all of these scenes, and we'll get a snapshot from each of them. It's not that bad. It's not great. It's not that bad, though. Considering it's turn-based. Nanigans, Game Maker, you find, is more clunky than Godot, which can be a bit more overwhelming before you're used to it. Oh, okay. Okay. You find them both similarly accessible in general, though. Yeah, I don't know what they are, and I don't know how they compare in terms of, like, the floor, but I think the Godot ceiling is quite a bit higher. But Godot is also this big open source engine that I think tries to be more general purpose than Game Maker does. Like, I think you can technically make 3D games in Game Maker, but I don't think it's really the intended use case for it. But it doesn't matter. You use the engine that's the best for your use case. And depending on what game you're making, it could be one, it could be the other, it could be neither. Alright, so these are all scenes, so these signals need to be disconnected. So how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do this one? So what we need is a ready function that connects this, but the problem is well, it might be okay. Well, the order in which we initialize these might matter a lot. But I think for right now, I think it's okay to do something like this. It might not be able to be a ready function. This might need to be something different. Something different. Because we can't just do preview hand dot, we can't just connect our signal to this thing. itself toggled on. Why is it this way? Why is it this way? Is it because... So we have this signal on preview button toggled. Who is this? Who's listening for this? Is it you? Okay, it is you. So for some reason we have the script in here. Do the preview button toggle. That's maybe not what we want. Maybe it is though. This is the part that I don't like, is figuring out how we're gonna reconnect everything when we're loading and unloading many things. Make music and some programming. Nice. Tried using Godot. As soon as you opened a script, you got lost. GameMaker is so much easier than GameMaker language is so much easier than GDScript. Okay, that's fun. Yeah, GameMaker is a little more straightforward in that I think like every object has like a script associated with it. Some interesting things. I think it's less flexible, but it sounds like a good introduction at least. That's cool. Yeah, we're doing something a little more complicated, and it seems to get more complicated every day. I don't know who I want to handle this. I like having these triggering something. But honestly, I think what everyone's going to need to do is everyone's going to need to signal up to the input manager or something. I might rename my input manager like my signal manager or something. I don't know. I guess input manager is fine. Yeah, because then what we could do is we could just say input manager dot discard file is us. I think this is the sort of thing we want. And so this thing is just going to keep track of all of this stuff. Say variable discard file. So I think anyone who is on our list of like classes that we are snapshotting and potentially reloading this way, I think they all need to be, there needs to be some global thing, or maybe the run manager. But I like putting them in an auto load, because then they're accessible everywhere if they're needed, and they can access everything. But this might be too ridiculous. Maybe we put it in the run manager, and then the input manager signals down or calls down if it needs you to do anything with these. I guess it doesn't really matter. This is easier, so we're gonna do this. Godot is I think it's way easier to do stuff in Godot than other engines in terms of like, you don't really have to, like, you can just hook things up with signals and scenes. The scene node system, I don't know what GameMaker uses, but if it's anything like the Unity or Unreal like prefab system, Godot's node scene model of how a node is a scene and a scene is a node, and a scene can be many nodes and a node can be many scenes, like that architecture is just superior to anything anyone else is doing in terms of scene instantiation and reasoning about nodes and stuff, or whatever you want to call them, objects. That system is better than anything anyone else is doing of any of the game engines I've seen or tried. But it is hard to get used to because it's unintuitive and no one else does it, which makes it harder. But it's so good. It's so useful. It's very flexible. All right, we also need to store the trash pile. Marticus, you've been trying FL Studio? Nice. You're going back to programming. I know people who like, that's Fruity Loops, isn't it? FL Studio? I think people call it that anymore, I guess. It's very popular. So 7 things, 8 things, if you count. Oh, character figures. which we've renamed the figure manager. Okay, so all of these are going to be set. The environment map is fine for now, although this is going to be reloaded, so it needs to be part of this model, but it's not reloaded as part of the snapshot. How long do you think it should take to finish this game? I don't know. Finish the game? Probably a year and a half, but we're going to have a Steam demo out by the end of the year. So we're going to try to get it be playable in the next few months and then have a full demo up by the end of the year here. But finished is a very loaded word. But yeah, you can't beat the node scene system in Godot. It's too flexible. All right, so here are all our snapshots. So all of these need to have some kind of snapshot function. You're going to finish a Godot mod you've been working on? Oh, fun. That sounds fun, Mordecus. So ready, we'll do this. And then I think the signaling, we are going to... Here's what we're going to do. We're going to create some more signals. So we're not going to do this card pile preview thing. We're going to get rid of this signal, which is going to be a little rough because I think some people depend on this signal, but we're going to get rid of this. We don't want this one anymore. What we want is, we want a signal that says something like discard pile empty. And then we want another one of like signal. We want like discard pile. I don't want the opposite of empty. I just want it to, if it's just not empty. Yeah, but Fender, so you're like, GameMaker has objects in rooms. You can just put your object in a room. Can you put a room in a room? Can you put a room in an object? Can you put a room in an object in a room and an object in a room? Because Godot lets you do that with the node scene system. It's just, it has no equal. How good of a system, how the bottomless potential of the node scene system. It's a little hard to get your head around at first, but it's just, oh, it is incredible. Can't be done. Can't be beaten. All right, we're back in ads over on Twitch here. All right, so container ready. Did I say not empty? Is this dumb? Discard pile empty, discard pile not empty. Here we can say if is empty, discard pile empty dot emit. Do I really need one of these for each? Yeah, this should be fine. Else discard pile not empty dot emit. This is kind of dumb, but this should be fine. And then so with this, if a card has been added, we can say discard pile, not empty, not emit. And then if we handle container empty, then we just say discard pile empty, not emit. Also, why would you want to put the scene as in your like level, which shows on the screen inside of an object? It doesn't have to be. A scene doesn't have to be just the level. A scene could be a subset of the level. It could just be a collection of nodes that all have a static relationship to each other. It's just the flexibility. It sounds like you prefer simplicity of implementation, which is fine, especially for learning. That's better. But there's a potential to the node scene system that is just like nothing I've seen in any other engine I've used. It's incredible. It's certainly far superior to the prefab system. But yeah, it's great. It's so good. It's crazy how good it is. Okay, so if we want to get this snapshot, now that we've done the things that we were trying to do, which is, well, we're not going to do this discard pile.new. What we need to do is the thing needs to have a reference to its own scene, which is a little circular, but it should be fine. Discard pile. So we'll say discard pile.instantiate. So is it really, do we actually need to store this? So there's some stuff that we might need to handle. So like we instantiate this thing, and then what changes that we need to do? So the thing that we would need to do is put all of our cards in here. So is it as simple as saying cards equals, or is it as simple as saying snapshot.cards? Here, what we're going to do is we're going to say variable, we'll say our cards. Is an array of card and equals cards. Dot duplicate actually, do we need to store this? Could we just say snapshot.cards? I'm a little concerned about adding a card directly to a card, or a cards array directly to a card container without doing like a move to. I don't think we should. I think it's dangerous to directly, yeah, internal card array, read only, use card.move to, get cards for a safe copy, or the query methods to inspect. Direct mutation, append, insert, erase, bypasses registration and will cause layout, signal, and state tracking bugs. So we can't do that. But what we could do is somehow do a mass move. Yeah, but a scene's not an object. A scene could be a collection of many objects. A scene could actually be a collection of scenes. Because a node is a scene and a scene is a node. There's a parity between the two and also a difference between the two. And the way that they relate to each other is just incredibly powerful. That's my only point. My only point is because of the way that they've been created and the way that they're organized and relate to each other and all the built-in functionality and everything, you cannot capture the power of that with just an object and a scene, or a prefab and a scene. Like, it's really good. Game Maker's fine. I don't have a problem with Game Maker. Ooh, move cards 2. Card array. Target contain. This is what we wanted. Move cards 2. Well, hold on a second. Is this the 2 or is this something else? Oh, no, this doesn't work. We could say move all 2, but that's also not what we want. So we don't actually want to move. Oof. We'll have to figure out how to do this. But there's just, if you, at some point, you might get to the point where you're like, there's things I want to do that is not well represented or not easily able to do in the engine I'm currently working in. My only point is that check out Godot. Everyone should check out Godot at some point. It's so good. What a good engine. I used Unity for over 15 years. I picked Godot up very quickly, and I'm very happy with it, especially as a solo developer. It's very good for solo developers. All right, so this is a little tricky because what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a snapshot of this card pile, which means we need to give this card pile a copy of all the cards that are in the current pile, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to do that doesn't violate card registration. And I feel like this is going to be really tricky. But it might be okay. It might be okay. Let's see if the actual card pile class has anything to help us do this. Card pile. There you go. Oh lord, card piles can be shuffled. They probably use the same yeah, it uses the CG random. Okay, so that's fine. We can work around that. All right, so somehow we need to get all of our copies of our cards into this card pile correctly while respecting all the registration and everything. And I'm not sure what the best way to do that is going to be. We can duplicate our cards, but now we need to move the cards into the snapshot. We might need to honestly make like a card pile that's like a temporary holder or something. Can we just say here's what we can maybe say. We can say for card in, let's say copies, card copies. Let's say for each copy, let's say copied cards, or maybe like duped cards. For each copy in our in the duped cards, copied maybe is better than duped. Copied cards. For each copy and copied cards. Hey, Spunkius, how's it going? If you learn C++ for game dev, how hard would it be to move to Godot? Super easy. Godot is written in C++, and you actually can access the scripting language is this thing called GDScript, which is like a superficially Python-esque kind of language. It's really its own thing under the hood, and it's all hooked into their C++, but there's actually ways to get access to the Godot C++. You can even write your own C++ through these things they call GD extensions. And so you could write some stuff in C++, and then you could hook it into the engine, and you could just invoke it using GDScript. Or not. You could still do it just directly in C++. But yeah, that would be good. It would be good. It would work. Godot bad for 3D games? Oh no, Godot is great for 3D games. Have you ever heard of PVKK? I'm not gonna say the word. It's too long. You ever heard of PVKK? Look at this game. This game's made in Godot. and it's 3D. Pretty cool. I would say Godot is the best for 2D, as in no other engine is as good as Godot in 2D, but it's certainly not bad for 3D. I think Unreal is going to cede a lot of ground to Godot in the next few years, based on the decision making they're going through. In the same way that, you know, Unreal ceded so much ground to, or Unity ceded so much ground to Godot in the last few years. I think Unreal is, I think people are going to stop using Unreal soon. We'll see. I know people are really upset about the blueprints thing, about discontinuing blueprints. But yeah, this is a 3D game made in Godot called PBKK. No, yeah. This is definitely a, you know, in the last few years, Godot's made a lot of has made a lot of strides. But yeah, it's great. Yeah, that's fine, Fender. Yeah. Yeah, Nanigans. Every engine has things that are good in it, and if you just use the stuff that's available out of the box, it'll look like everyone else. So it's really about what you put into it yourself. That's for sure. Yeah. I think nowadays the three big engines have a lot more in common than they have differences, for sure. There's things I don't like about Godot. I don't love that every single thing is a class. I don't love that my vectors are classes. I hate that. But you know, for each copy and copied cards, can I just say copy.move to snapshot? Move card.move config.new 0, something like that. Here, we could actually restore the move config. We could say move config card.move config. Can I say this too? .new 0. I would kind of like to do this as a batch, but I don't know if you can do that. I think I would have to put it in something if I wanted to do that. Yeah, so we can duplicate our cards and then move them all. And that might work. I'm really concerned about this snapshot system. I am not convinced. Oh, for copy card in copied cards. And then you would return snapshot. Could not recall discard. I mean, it's right here. There's a compilation error somewhere. There we go. Okay, this is pretty easy for these. I'm not convinced this will work. This is just a copy of the array. By default, shall copies return all nested arrays or whatever, the original. So are these cards? I'm a little concerned about this. Are these going to be all references to the same object? I don't know if this is going to do what I think it does. I'm asking Google here if array.duplicates creates copies of array members. Does not create copies of objects, nodes, or resources stored inside the array. Yeah, so that's actually what we need. We actually need to do this a little more complicated. Well, that explains why. Oh, that's why we call cards.duplicate. It's not because we're duplicating the cards. It's because we're duplicating the array that holds the cards. I'm so dumb. I was like, why does the plugin always insist on doing it that way? It's because otherwise we'd be passing around the same internal array, which is bad. Okay, so I can't just do cards.duplicate. So I actually need to say for card in cards. So for each of these cards, we actually need to copy this card somehow. That shouldn't be that bad. We actually just need to... A card doesn't have any resources other than its resource. Or it doesn't have any stats that's not just its resource. So we should be able to say... So let's keep this array. Let's just move things around a little bit here. You prefer C languages than Python? Yeah, me too. I prefer statically typed languages. I wouldn't get too hung up on the scripting language. It's really easy. Like if you know how to use C++, you will not have a hard time figuring out how to use a scripting language like Python. Same reason you've tried Godot. The reason you didn't like it was the same reason I love it. The scene is so good. The scene and the node is so good. You'll come around to it. There's no rush. I don't think I needed to use Unity for 15 years before I appreciated the scene in Godot, you know? I probably could have, used it for just a few. But... Nanigans, you don't care what any language calls a class, struct, object, tables. They are all essentially just properties in a data structure and a convenient naming convention around functions. The only part that matters on a perf level is if you have control of passing by reference or not. That doesn't matter for someone for learning. Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. Yeah, I think learning the difference between a class and like a struct is like about all you need. I definitely prefer structs. I mean, who doesn't? But there are some things which a class is better for sure. But we don't need to get into all that. Spunkiest, you've done a CS degree, you just don't know how to apply the knowledge to game making. Ooh. Yeah, just that's easy. That's the easier part. Just give it a try. Do some tutorials. Join a game jam. Game jams are great. All right, so we're making a snapshotting system that lets us save copies of certain things before we make a change, like before we play a card or perform an action or something, just because this game is a card game and it's a turn-based tactics game. So undo redo is super crucial. So we're building in undo redo. We've decided that snapshotting is better than trying to do bidirectional functions or whatever you want to call it. You know, functions that can make something happen and then also make something unhappen. The unhappening part, or re-happen, the flickering of like managing that does not seem good to me. So we're just going to try snapshotting and hope that it's within a acceptable performance profile. LSG, you wouldn't mind some more pass by value stuff in Godot? Yeah. Type dictionaries was definitely a nice addition. I mean, that's not why we made our ECS, but a nice benefit of our ECS was our simulation was so lightweight because it was all just operating on structs. I definitely prefer that. I prefer pass by value to be the default for sure, rather than pass by reference. There's a lot of crazy stuff that happens once you start passing things by reference. So we have card in cards. So we're going to say copied cards dot append. What we're going to do is we're going to say, who do we have do this? Is it the deck manager? Do we actually know? Does the deck manager, can the deck manager be something else? Is the card res, where's the card res manager? That's not a, is that an auto load? Because if that's an auto load, this will work. Yeah, the card manager. Okay. Card manager saves the day. So we have a list. I actually might change the name of some of the card manager stuff right now before we get too far into it. I wanted to call this the card pool. I actually think I want to call this the card catalog, because a pool is a little different than a catalog. The catalog is like literally every card that we have. And this is accessible from anywhere, which is nice. So we can actually just recreate the card from anywhere. Load card catalog, card pool. All right, who does that? I think that's the game manager's job. So let's just, okay, so this is the card pool. So this says pool, refill card pool. Oh, that's funny. I guess it's funny what I've done here. This should probably be reload. I think reprint is funny, but I think it's confusing what we're doing. Reload card catalog. This is going to be card catalog as well. I might call this read. I will say reload. All right, so we have our card data. The only unfortunate thing is because the global can't actually store the card catalog. Oh, this is nil. That's not good. Oh, it's because I renamed it. Okay, so that we got to rebuild the card catalog real quick. That's fine. For how I get it to do this. If engine.isEditor hint. Reload card catalog. How do I get this to trigger? Oh, I get it to trigger by reloading the scene. So if I close that. And then I open it somewhere here. Now it's reloaded the cards. And then now what I can do is, well, I think we have execution errors somewhere. Yeah, here. Forget about this for a second. Go back here. Go back here again. Godot makes you do some work sometimes to resolve issues. Card catalog. Card catalog. So yeah, the only unfortunate thing is this auto load can't store the cards permanently. It needs help from the game manager, but I feel like that's a temporary problem. I think what we need to do is we need to start writing the cards out to a file somewhere. And then we can just read it in here instead. But as a temporary solution, this is fine. Crash. Crash. Pile size. Deal. Draw pile. Oh, you don't know. You don't know these things. How do you do these things? Draw pile. Oh, yeah, we can't do this. Maybe this stuff should be in the card manager, not the input manager. Things like draw pile, discard pile, player hand. That probably makes more sense. But maybe not. Maybe not. Hey, thanks for the follow. See ya? See ya, PCE? You know, if you asked if you should change to Godot, I would say yes. Yeah, I would. Are there any downsides? Well, it's all relative, right? So do I think there are any downsides relative to Game Maker? I don't know. I haven't used Game Maker, so. Since you already know my answer is rigged and predetermined, I will just not answer. Yeah, so what we should do here is instead of storing these, we should probably decide who controls these. It should probably be the card manager for this part instead of doing it like this. I guess for now what I can do is I can enable these again. I turned them off preemptively, but we'll just turn them back on. Okay, well, that loaded. There's something here. Something suspicious here. What's here? What is that? Who is that? Let's see. Who is that? There's something here. You can see the light, slightly light gray. Who is that? Gen pile. What is this? General pile. Oh, did you lose your reference to the draw deck or something? Deck, card deck. Deck, card deck, starting deck, cards. Deck name, starting deck. Starting pile, here it is. Yeah, you lost your reference. Here you go. Give that back. I don't know why you lost your reference. There we go. Discard thing's not working, but that's fine. Yeah, the card selection's not working, but that's okay. This part all works. Watch it crash as soon as I do that. Yeah, it's fine. Oh, I did a neat thing. I didn't talk about it at all this stream, but what I did do over the weekend is I made a tile set. I made a tile atlas for bounds. Let me turn the debug off. But I made well, this is one of them. I made a couple of them, but they're functionally the same, but it's an auto tile so that I can mark any area of boundaries, and I can do it for one tile or many. It's very easy. Which is why when I do this, you can see the boundaries around the playable area. That's all just an auto tiler that just runs. And it's also the list of valid tiles, so it's neat. So here it's like, that was an area that you could deploy, but now that this guy exists, if you tried to play like another knight, now it's running the auto tile over just the knight, which is neat. Kind of neat. There's a graphical abomination here. There's an error here. It's a very thin line. It makes me concerned that there's a sprite bleed through effect that I'm seeing. I don't know how to deal with that. I'm gonna not worry about it. Wouldn't be a Digital Iliad game without an auto tiler. Yeah. Auto tiling is really easy when you figure out. The most proud thing about this auto tiler for me, LSG, you remember how I said how the other tiler has like a lookup dictionary where it's an indirect lookup where it'll be like this vector 4 points to a vector 2 atlas coord. This doesn't have that. This is just one. This just uses the raw neighbor information to do a direct lookup to the atlas coordinate, which is why you can see this stuff. So these are like the sides and corners. So these are the sides and corners. So this is like a tile with nothing. This is like a tile with a neighbor to the left. This is a tile with a neighbor to the right. And so this pattern is duplicated across the whole thing. And then what we do is we add in the corner information. So like, these are all the tiles that have no corners. These are all the tiles that have an upper left corner. These are all the tiles that have an upper right corner. These are all the tiles that have both an upper left and an upper right corner. And so there's a lot of duplication. There's a lot of empty tiles and duplicate tiles, but it's still like just a 16 by 16 sprite sheet. So from a performance standpoint, it really doesn't matter. And it's just a raw lookup where it just counts its neighbors, and then the neighbor count is exactly the atlas coordinate for the tile. It's kind of neat. Kind of fun. I already answered your question, Fender. I said you were right. I would tell you to use Godot. But when you ask about downsides, it's all relative, right? So if you're saying, are there any downsides? What you're saying is, are there any downsides compared to what I use now? Which I know for you is GameMaker. And I haven't used GameMaker, so I'm not gonna opine on that. I would say there are definitely upsides, but I'm not gonna tell you there are no downsides. So whatever engine you want to use is the right engine for you, you know? I think each person needs to take responsibility for that, to look at what they want to do and pick the right tool. I'm not going to try to convince you, but I do love Godot. Godot is good. Certainly the best engine with a 5-letter name. And again, this GitHub repo for a Godot plugin, which is a dual grid-based auto tiler, is also a really good reference for what it is, how it works, and has references to a lot of really good information for it. Nice. If you're a fan of visual scripting, that would be a downside. Oh yeah, is that what their scripting language is? I don't know. I've seen some pretty hardcore programmers use GameMaker. Tilemap Dual. They're on version 5. Oh yeah, you know, I'm gonna say I honestly tried to use terrains before I made my own little auto tile thing. I did try to use terrains. This is neat. But you know what? Terrains can't handle. There's a very basic shape that terrains can't handle that like absolutely breaks the built-in Godot terrain system, and I'm kind of surprised. Oh yeah, these are the out of bounds sprites. It's this shape. This shape, what I'm going to call the solitary diagonal, which is a diagonal that has no edge connections and only a corner connection. You literally cannot represent this shape using the Godot terrain system. It cannot be represented, and there's multiple engine issues that people have created. But just the way that the engine does the checking, if there are no edges and just a corner, the terrain system will never guess the correct tile for that square, which is unfortunate. So I had to, that's what prompted me to be like, well, it'll be worth doing this because it's not like they're going to change that anytime soon. But I could have used a plugin. I could have alternatively used a better tile plugin or better terrains. I think there's literally a plugin called the Better Terrains plugin. But I didn't want to add a plugin since I already knew exactly how to do this. I was like, I'll just do it. I'll just do it. I did it in an evening. It's kind of the one productive thing I did over the weekend, I think. All right. right, so we're gonna have to test some of this stuff with this snapshot system here. I'm not convinced this is gonna work the way I think it does, but I think what we can do here is we can say card for card, card, and card. So we can say copy cards.append, and we can say something like card manager dot get card. What's it called? Card manager. What? Okay, the engine is having a hard time. Card manager. Is that not what I call it in the auto load? Card manager. Yeah, this is what I call it. Get card res. I don't want the res. I want get card. Oh, I actually don't have a get card function. Okay. Okay. But I want to say something like card manager.get card, and I want to plug in card.card data. Then we can just make a card. Or actually, is that how I would do it? I want to create card. Who creates cards? Is it the deck manager or is it CG? Who creates the cards? I think it might be the deck manager. Create card. Creates a card from a resource. Override to customize card creation. Return card.new card resource. Oh, well, that's easy. Never mind. I don't even need to use card manager. I can just say card.new card resource. That might have consequences. But maybe not. Let's see where the card constructor is. Does it not overwrite the constructor? Card data. Init. Engine is editor. Return name card, string cg.cardindex. cg.cardindex plus equals 1. Card resource, card data equals card resource. Ew. Okay, so when I create a card, it does register the card. It increments some kind of card index thing. But I don't think it actually stores anything anywhere. So I don't think we'd actually run into any real limitation. However, we could work around this. I've seen ways that they do it. Yeah, okay, card index used in the init function of the card. Make sure every card instantiated has a unique name. See, I don't actually want every card instantiated to have a unique name. So we're gonna not just create a new card that way. We are going to do it a little differently, I think. I wonder if I could just duplicate the card. That might be sufficient. That might have unintended consequences, but it might work. Because, yeah, I don't actually want to do that. The card plugin has an example of what you would do if you wanted to create copies of a card. And actually, I think I'm using that in the preview, the card preview. GameMaker has a good built-in sprite editor. Oh, that's neat. Didn't know that. It, like, doesn't need one, but that's neat to have one. Believe me, I've been tempted to, make my own sprite editor embedded in one of my tools. All right, so I think we have something in here. I think we do a proxy. Yeah, proxy cards, array card equals cardpile.getCards. So this gets a safe copy of the cards. We shuffle the proxy. We do a lot of stuff to make sure you can't just read the content of the card piles. And then so this is how this is their preferred way to do a card copy. Okay, so we do create a new card. But then what we do is we name the card. We give the card the same name with a thing here. And we say card proxy.set meta source card. And then we move the card proxy to a pile. And then what is this clear and free function a card container function? So clear and free removes all cards and frees them. Disconnect card signals, card.queueFree, cards.clear, card positions.clear, card rotations.clear. Oh no. Are cards not ref counted? We might actually need to clean up our snapshots when we're done with them if we don't use them. Which is actually not that bad. But I do think I should do kind of the approach that we have with the preview thing. We're already doing it for the preview. I think that's fine. We can do this kind of thing. We don't need to say proxy. Sort the cards. We name it. We disable it, which is interesting. I don't know if we need to do that either. Card proxy is card.new, card.data, card data. So this is for a preview. We could say card name and we could add like a snapshot or something. I don't know if I care. The card name doesn't matter, and we're never going to run out of ints for storing cards. So I don't know if I actually care. If the only thing that changes is the card index, and the card index isn't actually stored anywhere other than at the CG, and that's the only consequence to making a copy of a card, I think I'll use this process. I shouldn't rename it because eventually we'd have a card name that gets like infinitely long if we actually use the snapshot. So maybe I don't do all this. I feel like there's a better way to do card proxy than this because this is just for the preview. So anytime you click the preview button, it's like, whoop, shows you these cards. And then when you make the preview go away, all of those cards are killed. So maybe this doesn't matter. Maybe we'll just do what we were going to do anyway. But it does mean we probably need to clean these up a little bit. I don't think we can just queue free the discard pile. We'll have to, if we decide to clear the snapshot thing, we'll do something else. You know, duck out. All right, take it easy, Nanigans. See you tomorrow. All right, let's do that. So let's say, do I need to actually say anything else? I don't think I do. Set the meta. I don't know if we care about the meta. Might be good for some debugging stuff. I don't want to change the name because I could see how that would get out of control very easily. I might actually copy the name. I kind of want to just duplicate the card because it's not a different card. It's the same card. So I don't really want to create a new card. I think that's what I'm going to do. I still don't totally know what node.duplicate does. And I'm sure there are downsides, but I think I would rather just, because it copies the card signals and all of that stuff. Oh, that's not good though. It might disconnect a bunch of stuff. No, but it's a different card. It's a different card. Yeah, we're gonna try duplicate. So button does inherit from node. I'm a little wary of using node duplicate, but I think it'll work. I think it's better than, there's flags, there's duplicate flags. By default, this method will duplicate only properties marked for serialization. Duplicates the node, returning a new node with all of its properties, signals, groups, and children copied from the original recursively. Maybe I don't need this. Maybe this is overkill. Yeah, let's just create the cards. Recreate the cards. We are going to need to do a thing. Oh, what's happening here? I don't know what the not common parent thing is, but let's not worry about it. I don't know what that means. I don't know why it only affects these buttons. Something to do with your signal. Disconnect their signals. And disable them to start. Yeah, that had something to do with their signals. Alright, well, I think we're getting towards the end of the stream here. I feel a lot better than I did when we started the stream, which is good. We're still in kind of a rough shape, in that we're like definitely behind. And we're on this kind of side quest to set up some kind of system that will let us snapshot things, but I think this will work. I think this will work. So I do want to duplicate the cards, but I think it would be better to just create a new card. But I do want to just I do just want to duplicate them. I do want to just say card.duplicate. Because then we're using the same indexes and stuff. I don't know if it'll work, but I want to do it. Expected end of statement after variable declaration found in instead. Oh, for. Why am I saying variable? For card and card, not cards. Copy cards out of pen, card dot duplicate. What are the duplicate flags? Duplicate also non-serializable variables. I kind of want that. A lot of answered questions. Yeah, at least. At least that, if nothing else, huh? I think it'll be interesting to see whether this actually works the way I think it does. We're going to start with a duplicate, because I would like to not... I would like to treat this literally as a duplicate of the other card. If I can. I think that might cause some unintended... Let's see if there's anything crazy that would happen if we did that. I'm a little concerned about how cards get unregistered if I do the duplicate. don't know what Godot really considers a serializable property. I don't really know. So does duplicate bypass init? Here, I'm gonna ask Google. It does bypass init. Directly clones existing objects in memory along with its properties. Further, if your init requires arguments to run Godot, will fail to attach the script. Oh, that's not good. Oh, we need to attach the script. Card has a script. Yeah, they do. Of course it does. Okay, maybe duplicate is a bridge too far. Maybe we just create a new card and don't worry about it. Because duplicate sounds like really bad. I can see why people have like very mixed opinions about it. Duplicate the node script. Also, we're running the duplicate children's scripts. Interesting. Yeah, this seems like too crazy. It seems like too much to do just to avoid an index from being incremented. I think it's better to just create the card. Again, this isn't something that's going to happen every second. This is something that only happens in response to the player actually doing something. So let's not do that. Let's just say card.new card.card data. I know that was a lot of time devoted to just nothing. So we take the card, we copy the cards, and then for each... Actually, we can just do that here. We don't have to redo. We can just say variable. Copy is the card equals this card.new thing. And we just append the copy. Actually, we don't need this array, do we? All we need to do is say copy. We need the move config though. Copy.move to snapshot. We'll say discard file. Return discard pile. All right. Oh, let's put this move config in here. All right. This is a very small function that does a lot for us. I might put this in a copy cards thing in a function if we need to use it, but should we just say get cards, probably? Yeah. I'm just saying get cards. Safe to read and modify. Can't I just... Yeah, whatever, who cares? I see a world in which this causes like memory leaks, but I think it'll be fine as long as we actually have like a cleanup function for when a snapshot gets removed. I call this create snapshot instead of get. And then we could have another function that's like destroy snapshot. And that does something like clear and free. That's any card container, right? There might be some other things we need to clean up, but I don't think so. I'm just forget about this preview button thing. All right, this might work. This might work. All right. All right, I think I know what we're doing. What we're doing now. Yeah, as long as we clean up when we destroy the snapshot, that's fine. So we can clear and free the cards, and then we queue free ourselves. I think that's it. I think that'll work. We'll see. I want to test this snapshot thing early. But it'll be really cool. It'll take a lot of pressure off me to tutorialize and explain the game. If people can just freely try stuff and experiment, I think that helps a lot with the new player experience. I think it'd be good. All right. Enough self-congratulation. There's a lot of work to do. But we're done for today. We will be back tomorrow. I don't think there's anything weird with my schedule this week, so I think we'll be streaming every one of our normal days here. I don't think there's anything to announce with this week's schedule, so yeah. Thank you all for watching. Oh, there you are, LSG, Jacob, appreciate you. Yeah. Hope I see you next time. Bye.